what strikes me reading about your case is that this woman used to be your best friend. So I understand that you initially defended her. What happened? What did you learn that started making you think, this wasn't just the simple accident she claimed it was?
Well, secretly she lawyered up and never told me. And we didn't get the autopsy back for 6 months after she died. So initially I thought it was an accident, and I wasn't going to accuse somebody else just because I lost my daughter.
Well, Alan Duke, you studied this case, CNN producer. Prosecutors said she had a 3.5-inch fracture on her skull with bleeding and swelling, and they're saying that it was impossible for her to sustain that kind of injury in the kind of fall that Amanda, the defendant, described. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and as Heather has said, the injuries are not consistent with a fall. Perhaps a slam with a baseball bat or being hit against a wall at 65 miles per hour. Those kind of injuries. We're talking about a tongue that was bitten, almost completely severed. And the circumstances of this case are very disturbing, and there are so many parallels to this and the Casey Anthony case. And as a journalist, it's remarkable to me that it was in the same courthouse at the same time, and yet didn't get the attention. And so I'm glad we're having Heather Murphy talk to us today.
Well, yes, law enforcement, in fact, said exactly what Alan Duke said, that Amanda's story did not match the injuries that this precious child sustained. Check this out.
The story just did not make sense. She could not conclude that the baby could have suffered that bad of a fracture to her head from that distance being on a playpen.
Now, you used to be best friends with her, and then because you learned new information as this case unfolded about your daughter's injuries, this huge fracture in the skull, you realized, no, this couldn't be the accident that she claimed it was. She behaved very strangely after she claims the child fell. Tell us about that, and tell us what you believe really happened.
She had sent me very strange text messages when it occurred, saying that she had wanted to keep my kids again. We found out through the trial that when the investigators and the first responders showed up at the house, Amanda was nowhere near the body. She wasn't attempting to revive her. So if you weren't trying to bring my daughter back to life, you obviously knew that there was no life left.
Well, Heather, I could see that you're struggling with this so much. This has got to be the ultimate betrayal. This was the woman you trusted most. What goes through your heart as you think about that betrayal?
It's hard because I had a gut feeling, and I had started to pull away from the family. And the only reason Olivia stayed that night is because Amanda asked if the girls could sleep over. And I said yes. If Amanda had never asked, the girls would have never been there, and we might not have been in this situation.
Now, I know you don't want to make this about her famous father, Billy Bob Thornton, and neither do I. But I have been reading that they were estranged and that she grew up without her dad. Was Amanda troubled? Did you see anything? Was there drug abuse? Was there alcohol abuse? Was there any inkling that this woman, who was your friend, because we all have friends, we all know that our friends have character defects, was there anything now with 20/20 hindsight that you say, there was something wrong with her?
To look at her now, I have to wonder if there were signs I didn't see and why I didn't see them, and the way that she's acting and the things that she's doing and the lies that are being told. As far as being estranged from her father, you know, maybe she is, maybe she isn't. I think maybe something else might be involved in their relationship when this came out.
Well, I know she has a public defender, but I've also read that you suspect that perhaps she might be getting some help from her wealthy, famous father?
Well, they paid for defendants in the case to testify on their behalf. It was close to $20,000, so the money had to come from somewhere.
Well, witnesses, yes. We don't know that. We can't independently confirm that. If anybody from Billy Bob Thornton's camp wants to talk about that, they're welcome to come on. Now, I understand that her sentencing is coming up. First of all, you have to be gratified somewhat, given that she faced identical charges to Casey Anthony, and Casey Anthony walked. Is there any sense of gratification that she got convicted of aggravated manslaughter?
There is a sense of gratification, but there's also the reality that something terrible happened to Liv. And in my mind, I wanted to believe that it was an accident, you know, but when all the evidence came forward and all the things came forward, something awful happened in my daughter's last few hours.
Now, Alan Duke, tell us about that. There's bananas, toenail polish. What happened?
It's really bizarre. As I've talked to Heather, I think I probably got the best description as I've talked to her about it, that the 911 call wasn't made for quite a while, and it was Amanda's husband, when he came home from work, he saw what was going on, and he placed he immediately placed a 911 call, but there was a lot of text messaging going on that one would wonder, was Amanda trying to cover her tracks and trying to create an alibi by her actions that she took before her husband came home? But you're right, it was really bizarre what apparently she was doing when the child may have already been dead.
So she claims that this child was in her playpen and was fooling around the playpen and accidentally fell off and dropped to the ground, and that, oh, she seemed okay, she fed her bananas, she did her toenails, and then they both fell asleep, and then when she woke up, the child was limp. First of all, if a child falls and has a 3.5-inch fracture, who in their right mind, who would give them bananas and do their toenails instead of rushing them to the hospital, Heather?
I don't know. You don't have to be in the medical field to know. And from falling 28 inches, you're not going to sustain a 28 or a 3.5-inch skull fracture. That is part of the story that's impossible. We don't know what really happened the night when Liv died.
Her sentencing is coming up. I know her sentence carries up to 30 years, but you're afraid that she might get something very lenient. Are you going to speak in court, and what would you say before the judge and this former friend?
The biggest thing that I think that I'm going to say is that I really want the truth at this point. And to be honest, my daughter Isabella and our sentence started on October 4th, and our sentence will end when we die. So it doesn't matter to me if she gets 13 or 30 years. It doesn't bring Liv back.
I feel so bad for you. My heart goes out to you. There is no way. People talk about closure, but there is no closure, right, Heather?
No, ma'am. There's not.
Oh, my heart goes out to you. It really does. I pray that you get at least justice and at least some answers. Thank you. Keep us posted. Thanks, Alan.